Hi, everyone. This is Pooja Desai, the heels on the ground. And today I am with my co host, my husband, Vivek
Hey,
Desai, the boots on the ground.
hey everybody, how you doing today?
And today we are going to be focusing on men's mental wellness. And joining me today is Julio Monroy, professor and an executive, also a friend of mine for over 42 years. I know I just said that out loud and I can't believe it. Um, and Julio, thank you so much for doing this with us.
Thank you for the opportunity to spend a few minutes, maybe an hour or so of your time just chatting. Looking
This
forward
is
to it.
this is amazing. So I know that we have had a very long, lasting friendship that has all of us actually at this point, because I could say that just as much as you're my friend, you have now you inherited V as well, and vice versa. But I think, having that foundation of friendship and, having just done another podcast with the group of my heels, or as you also grew up with the village, what does mental wellness mean to you as a man? And if you could share some of your insights, and then I would really like to know after you're done what V's thoughts are. So tell me, what does mental wellness mean to you?
I think it really depends on the particular day. But mental health to me in general, I guess, is something I constantly strive for. There are constant challenges. Today being a good example of that. I had a pretty busy but productive day at work. I headed out to the gym, came back getting ready for this, and on the way home, I'm rear-ended, and that put me into a particular mind state that I'm having to find ways to manage and trying to reset and calibrate to try to achieve that mental health that you can imagine is a up and down throughout any given day as life kind of comes at you.
First of all, thank you so much for still showing up to even do this. I hope by the time you're done, we could help with some of your mental wellness concerns after just getting into a motor vehicle accident. I don't even know how you're still doing this, but that really is a perfect example of, if you control your mindset, you really can accomplish anything. So, with that being said, Vivek, what does mental wellness mean to you?
I like you, Julio. I try. It's a challenge sometimes when you get thrown some curveballs and your day doesn't go as you hoped it would go. But I think every day I try to kind of be positive. Try to say that I can like lift myself as best as I can. And Pooja is there to help me all the time. But I think to be positive reinforcement to myself that is kind of the one thing that helps me the most. Um, I think we have challenges with our relationship. We have challenges with kids. You have challenges at work. You have challenges that face you and surprise you every day, right? So to be positive and try to be like, okay, this is a new day. I got this. Just like that little pep talk every day kind of makes a difference for me. And I do it with my team at work. I try to do it with Pooja. I do it with the kids. I think that really helps me keep that positivity throughout the entire day and keep me sane and try to positively reinforce, hey, you got this. I think that makes a huge difference for me, for my mental wellness. And hopefully that can help somebody else that's listening.
Yeah, and I agree, and I think you touched on a critical piece that for me personally, I find yields that level of success to achieve mental health wellness, which is relying on the individuals that are close to you, right? So your partner, your coworkers, your family, and being able to express yourself and to not suppress those feelings, right? Because ultimately, that suppression is, I think, where people really struggle, either keeping things inside for various reasons, or not having people to talk to, or feeling comfortable talking to. And so for me, it's very much along those lines where I rely heavily on these relationships to reset myself and to continue to manage those challenges. As you said, we're constantly throwing curveballs, and that's okay. We know that the one constant in life is change, right? And as much as we try to plan things, and we should absolutely try to plan things,
Yeah.
there's always got to be an opportunity for us to adjust and accommodate these changes that are coming our way.
Yeah, you're 100% right, and I'm glad you brought it up because it's one of the things I wanted to also mention, to be able to adapt, right? And one of the things that my team at work struggles with sometimes is to adapt to the curveballs of what our work challenges, right? And that the other teams may throw at us. And I try to listen to their frustrations. I try to understand their perspective, right? And that's tough. And I want to be there for my team to help them work through those challenges or curveballs and then figure out a way forward, right? And being able to do that over and over again and being there for the team will improve the team's ability to work together and work past those, problems and challenges that come up day to day, right? And I think, like you said, to be able to to be able to
Be
adjust
adjustable.
and keep moving forward and deal with it, take the hit, sidestep, and keep going forward, right? And trying to figure out that path forward is important to be able to do that. And I think I'm glad you brought it up because every day I talk to my team about that to try to do that. And even if I'm not there, if they could do it on their own, right? And it applies to all aspects of life, not only work.
I think that, having had the experience of such a long lasting friendship with you, Julio, what would you tell your younger self? Because I think that, you know, I have seen you transform into an executive, a professor, but I knew you as someone I played dodgeball with. And, historically, and I could probably say, in all of our cultures, men's mental wellness or health was not really a factor. You just kind of, you're the man and you continue to just be that. So I think I'm really interested in knowing from you, Julio, what would you have told your younger self about the taboo or the stigma, that surrounds mental wellness and mental health, and how do you feel you have transformed with that, and what tips could you actually help be a knowledge donor and pass on?
Yeah, so it's I've never really thought about how long we've been friends. So to hear 40 plus years, it's scary to some extent,
But
but
we
very
still look the
admirable.
same, so that's a great sign.
Yes, absolutely. But thinking back to your question about what I might tell my younger self, it's really interesting to reflect back to the type of environment that you and I grew up in, right? I would say at best middle low income, not necessarily the safest neighborhoods, a lot of negative energy around us at that point in time. And even with what might be considered role models for us, being teachers as examples, neighbors, and so forth, not strongly encouraging us to try to strive for something greater. And so I think that we dealt with a lot emotionally, physically, mentally, as we were kind of going through that transition from adolescence to adulthood. And I think a lot of what I would reflect back and tell myself at this point probably has something along the lines to do with the fact that we can't allow others to dictate our path, and we can't allow them to set ceilings that they think are appropriate for us, right? I think we've been both very blessed and fortunate to have found the success that we've had, but it's taken a lot of work, a lot of effort, a lot of different things, honestly, to get us to where we are.
How about you? And spot on. And My God, I am so impressed and happy and to be able to say that where you are today and where we were when we were younger is just such a powerful journey. And bravo, friend, you really did it.
We
So
did
I,
it.
yeah, we sure did. But we're focusing on men's mental.
Well, to get back to that, I got to tell you, you guys had each other for many years, right? And growing up, I had some friends that I grew up with that were really there, that were, you know, there for me to, you know, to talk to vent to, you know, bounce off ideas with, and like help shape me as a young kid and as a young adult into high school, college, all those years, right? But you know, I think as I grew up, I think I started changing the people I kept around me,
Mhm.
and I grew by understanding and realizing, not solely because I figured it out, but by trial and error or by bad experiences, and by realizing, and even now as an adult, you know, me and Pooja talk about it, like people we want to spend more time with, right? Because they are such a good influence on us, and we can talk to them about a lot of things, and we connect on a lot of levels, and we have that similar goal in life or similar outlook or perspective of positivity and helping and giving and loving, and that, like, looking really out for your best, right? Best in the other, right? And I think when I was younger, I not I, and I probably had it, I did have it, but as I get older, I realize, you know, having somebody to vent to and talk to, and just kind of, you know, having another guy to just pick up the phone, or go have a drink or play some basketball with, or, you know, go to the gym with, you know, those relationships and those times, I think have meant a lot to me, uh, for my mental wellness, and really enabled me to really be the best I can be, even though I'm never at my best, but like trying to be the best I can be. You know, it just helps me be better, right? You know, and I think keeping that those people around you definitely makes a difference for my mental wellness. You know.
And along those same lines, right? I think the contrary to that is that you stop surrounding yourself with the people that are holding you back and are maybe adding to your mental unwellness.
Right.
And so there is
Totally.
a need to kind of manage that and transition through life as you not only, surround yourself with those positive individuals that can, bring a lot of positive energy around you, but finding ways to really parse out the individuals that are toxic in your life, that are bring you back down.
No, I think it's both of you are very spot on, and I'm not sure how it worked for you, Vivek, with your male friends that you may have called, but it was a little bit different. So sorry. It was a little different between for me because I would call Julio and it would be mostly, well, not call. Actually, I would just show up at the door because we lived across the street. But with that being said, I really think that it wasn't something that was prompted by saying, I'm very unwell today, right? We kind of knew, but I think for our relationship, because I'm a female, you're a male, it was a lot easier for you to support me mentally, and I hope that I was able to do that for you as well. But it was never, that's the taboo and that's the stigma that I talk about. It's not like Julio called and said, or walked across the street and is like, I'm very unwell today, or I'm not feeling at my best. We kind of
You were
we
able
just
to talk
right,
and hang out and be yourself around each
right.
other
Played
because you,
some dodgeball.
yeah.
We rode a bike. We would walk. We would go to the park. But I find that that was also not just us being, obviously kids playing in the streets and in the park like we should have been doing at that age anyway. But at the same time, I also felt that that was like a resource for us.
Mhm.
It was free therapy, whether we would go to Alley Pond Park and ride our bikes there and take walks. So, what do you uh, wish you could have said to your younger self, or even to the younger generation, as a professor? And you could speak to that. How do you feel like you mentor men, now to be able to sit there and actually, pick up the phone and call for help if that's what you really need.
Yeah, it's an interesting conundrum to some extent, right? Because I think the ones that probably need the greatest amount of mentoring are our young youth that are struggling between childhood and the innocence that comes with that, and the lack of a responsibility to finding a way to become a young adult and to take on the responsibilities of working, education, eventually family, and so forth. And I don't know if there's a good means of doing that. Education is predominantly focused right now on academics, not necessarily on how to appropriately transition, through life's stages. And so I think where I really try to focus in on at this point in time when it comes to mentorship of young youth is really trying to get them to understand that there really is a need to let go of some of that innocence and lack of lack of responsibility doesn't sound maybe the best way of identifying it, but the fact that they are hanging on to that youthfulness where they really have, parents or other dependents that are providing, significantly to their well-being, and it's not always going to be that way as they continue to get older.
Wow, that's really powerful.
Yeah, I think that's without a doubt something that I see as I'm hiring some people at work that are in their 20s coming out of college, and I see it every day. And I got to tell you, when you get to the kids that are out of college and like you said, there's that innocence and they're still dependent on their parents or whoever it is. And I see that compared to somebody who's like 26 or 27 or 28 and has been independent and on their own, doing it for a couple of years. That transition and this, I guess the stress or the adult, the responsibility to that person and the difference between those two individuals that I've noticed is definitely different, right? Like you see that they've either dealt with that stress of becoming more responsible and risen to that challenge, or they haven't, right? And they don't know how, and they struggle through it, right? And I think having that mentorship like you are doing for some of probably the students that you have, I'm trying to do at work, and I'm trying to help them learn how to take on that responsibility, that challenge. And I think, it's different with every case because every kid has different upbringing and different, like different expectations, circumstances that they've dealt with, but also different expectations or understanding of what they think that their adult life's going to be, right? Their perspective is very different. So to deal with all those different perspectives and be able to help them understand and grow to become adult while not being overly stressed and overly overwhelmed and start, not being able to handle those growth opportunities, right? Like to be able to grow with it is I think the challenge. So I continue to mentor kids and young adults. And I got to tell you, it's different with everyone. Everyone deals with it differently.
Yeah, absolutely. And like you said, it's always circumstantial, right? And some will thrive, they rise to the occasion and really flourish beyond it. And others struggle. And so therefore, from a mental health perspective, it really weighs in on them and you can see it. And some of them, unfortunately, don't have good mentorship. They don't have a good support system around them. And so that's where, we kind of touched on this earlier, but I think it remains so critical to be able to, have individuals you can lean on, talk to, and really open up about your particular circumstances, right? Because I think what you'll also recognize, or these individuals might recognize, is that people really do want to be helpful. They want to help you transition through some of these challenges that you're confronted with in different stages of life. And so therefore you need to be able to trust, and trust, I think, is something that in today's society is not easily encountered for many individuals for various reasons. And I think it does, from a foundational perspective, play a big role in the ability to create that inner circle, essentially, of individuals that you could lean on.
Yeah.
No, that's spot on. And also, I think that it's really critical that we keep reinforcing to the men, to the boys, that it's okay to ask for help. It's okay to state, how you're feeling. I just had this conversation with my son recently, and him being 8 years old. And I remember him saying, "But is it okay for me to cry in front of my friends?" And I said, "Of course it is." And it depends on what, you shouldn't have to feel that. You shouldn't have to feel like, because you're a boy or because you're a male, that, society is going to perceive you in a certain fashion, because that's what we were taught. When something as basic as a tear, which is organically falling from your eyes, it's going to do it no matter what, is so, it's almost as if it's like forsaken. And I think that, developing, you know, with you through how you are doing it with your students, or you're doing it with employees, or how I even teach everybody at, in both my careers, of how to sit there and focus on self-care for themselves, what no matter what race, creed, sex, right? But I think that, hearing it from professionals, hearing it from people who have, grown up in an era where this was not permitted. Actually, on the contrary, if you showed any type of emotions, you were deemed weak, and you almost needed to portray this shell as if everything is okay and you had everything under control,
Yeah.
when inside you really don't, right?
I think
So
I think to that point, like we talked about this on the last episode, and like with my relationship with you, one of the things you've taught me is expressing myself, right? And I think that goes to also this mental wellness aspect, because without me being able to express myself better or communicate better with you, that's something that I'm learning even today, right? Like I'm getting better at it with our relationship. But I think, being able to, you know, share your feelings and communicate, hey, I need some time, or I need some time apart. I need to do something. I need to do something for myself, or take some time to yourself. And I need to go play basketball. I need to go to the gym. I need to, and being able to express those kind of things, you got to be able to do that, because you need to take time for yourself. And I think I've learned that as part of, just growing with you.
oh, it wasn't Julio giving you tips?
Well, Julio too.
Well, I gotta say, Kai being 8 years old is clearly going on 18, given the depth of the question that he's raising. But I will also say that there is an absolute generational difference, right, in terms of ability to share your emotions, to disclose your emotions, to share those emotions. Where I think maybe, I don't know if it maybe ended with our generation or not, where it was absolutely looked 100% negatively upon.
Yeah.
And now it seems like society as a whole has become much more embracing of individuals sharing, and so it's more inviting and more facilitating in that way for the younger generation now, I think, to do so. But I think, again, it comes down to trust, right? They need to be able to feel comfortable doing that, and to do it in a way, in an environment where they're not being judged. And so as individuals that may play a mentor role to different individuals, I think it's also one of those things we just need to be mindful of, right? As we're engaging in conversations with them, to really encourage them, and not make them feel as if we're ever being judgmental in any particular way.
No, I think that, the environment now does allow for this. And I think there's such, especially after 2020, has been such a focus on mental wellness, which, I think was probably needed for centuries and centuries before, right? And generations before. So
Definitely.
I'm glad that, one, for my own, I know this is men's mental wellness, but for even my own personal wellness, I couldn't have probably gotten through 40 plus years without you. And in order for that to have happened, you needed to work on your mental wellness, because it would have impacted me. So I think that, I'm grateful for not only our friendship and our journey, but the fact that, where we are today, we can speak about this so freely and not think about where we were so many years ago and how we would have even been addressed or looked at, right? For even talking about mental wellness. So I think with that being said, I want to just say, thank you so much for being a knowledge donor and for joining us on this part of our journey too, because you have definitely been in all of our worlds, right? For those of you who don't know, he was also my man of honor, okay, at my wedding. So, thank you for the friendship. Thank you for all these wonderful, tips and resources. And just, really making the world a better place, because you did make mine a better place from meeting you when I was 5 years old, and therefore now my husband. So
we wouldn't be here if like she didn't have that support system and that friendship. And I think it definitely adds to our relationship, which is awesome. Like, and I value your friendship so much because you know what?
I mean, you did hijack him for me a little bit, but yeah.
No,
Well, mutually,
can't-
the
can't
feelings
do it
are
alone.
definitely mutual. So I appreciate being part of the journey with you guys. And of course, I appreciate the fact that you guys are creating a platform here to bring attention to some critical topics. So keep doing what you're doing.
Oh, thank you so much. All right, audience, keep following us to see what else you'll find from Heels in the Boots on the Ground.
Thanks, Julio.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
everyone.